This morning on your bulletin, it says I was going to be preaching out of chapter 3. We had a little bit of a mix-up on some of the chapters and stuff, but I'm not going to be speaking on chapter 3. I want to continue on from where Chris left off last week, back in chapter 1. And we're going to, he finished up and he was talking about through troubles and tribulations and everything about God giving us comfort and everything. And I want to give a little bit of a historical background on the book of Corinthians, or the letter of Corinthians that Paul was wrote. This book is, when Paul wrote this letter it was a very, very personal letter and everything. And part of the message was he was in the process of going through a number of tribulations himself, and he had to go on the defense. And the people in Corinth were and getting the church going. Paul was doing everything he possibly could to help this church to grow. Through the first book of the First Corinthians, Paul is giving is teaching on various things and some of the problems that they were having through, but he was dealing through doctrinal issues as well as things on marriage, freedom, spiritual gifts, how the church should be in order. But in 2 Corinthians, it's a very, very personal type letter, because he himself is having to defend himself during the time he was gone. And there's a little bit of, sometimes some would consider maybe a little bit of confusion on how he's talking about this. But I'd like to start in chapter 1 and verse 12, and rather than just reading the whole thing, I want to kind of go through this in paragraphs. But in chapter 1, starting in verse 12, Paul is writing. He says, "Now this is our boast. Our conscience testifies that we have conducted ourselves in the world, and especially in our relations with you, in the holiness and sincerity that are from God. We have done so not accordingly to worldly wisdom, but according to God's grace. For we do not write you anything that you cannot read or understand, and I hope that as you have understood us in part, that you will understand us fully, that you can boast of us just as well as we will boast of you in the day of the Lord Jesus." A little bit, maybe a better word rather than boast, is he's talking about he wants to glorify. He wants to be he's talking about, I want to glory with you. He's talking to the Corinthians as you may be able to glory in part in what I'm doing. I want to be able to glory in you on that final day when the Lord comes and takes us home and stuff. He's talking about rejoicing glory, not a braggadocious thing that we think of boasting of this. But he wants them to understand that he spent 18 months with them, and then that's when after that, when he was establishing the church in Corinth, and he says this in 1 Corinthians, that in Acts he spent almost a year and a half with them, and trying to get them straightened out, lead them in the situation that they were in. So it wasn't It wasn't just a quick visit or anything, but he spent time with them. And he's testifying. He says, you know my testimony. You know what I've taught. You know who I am. During the time he left, and he was planning on coming back to visit them, and the indication is he had apparently made a short visit. And this is where it gets maybe a little confusing. But when he got back, he discovered that there were a number of false teachers that had crept up into the church, and they were trying to disperse what Paul was trying to teach. They were criticizing Paul, saying that he wasn't really an apostle of Christ, and that he was changing his mind and things like this. But he says, because I was confident of this, I planned to visit you first so that you might benefit twice. And this is where the most Bible scholars think that Paul made a short visit to Corinth during this time. I planned to visit you on my way to Macedonia. The book of 2 Corinthians is written actually from Macedonia. And to come back to you from Macedonia and then have you send me on my way to Judea. When I planned this, did I do it lightly? Or do I make my plans in a worldly manner? Or in the same breath I say, yes, yes, no, no, maybe yes, maybe no, who knows, you know. That's what Paul is saying. He says, I had every intention on coming. He says, I planned the best I could. But it wasn't a matter of maybe yes, maybe no. Could be a politician and do that. He is saying he put much effort. He had put much planning into this. And then he goes on to say during this time, but maybe as God is faithful, our message to you is not yes and no. For the Son of God, Jesus Christ, who was preached among you by me and Silas and Timothy, was not yes and no, but in him who has always been yes. What an ironic thought. Yes, for Jesus Christ. And so through him, the amen is spoken to us by the glory of God. Can we get an amen out of that? So, and now it is God who makes us both you to stand firm in Christ. He anointed us, set his seal of ownership on us. He put the Spirit in our hearts as a deposit guaranteeing what is to come. What a magnificent promise. In other words, all the promises that God made are all in Jesus Christ. That is what he's saying. Jesus Christ is the fulfillment of God's promises and everything that he had done from the foretelling of the Messiah coming to teaching us about the kingdom of God here on earth, to the death and resurrection. All of God's promises were filled in Jesus Christ. And this is Paul's explanation. It is yes in Jesus Christ. And so he's put this, it's not, and so when he was making his plans to come, he was doing everything that he could possibly do to do this. But at the same time, things change. How many of you have ever made plans and then all of a sudden had to quit it, stop it, and things like this? And he talks about this, not only the visit to the Corinthian church, but during this time there was a purpose of it, and there were still problems going on into the church and everything. How many of you are fixer-uppers? In other words, you see something that might be out of place, or something that just isn't right, and you gotta fix it. How many of you are guilty of that? So, as most of you know, I've been doing, with hard hats, I've been really heavy into the doing drywall work. And there have been some churches I've had to go to. They say, well, can you come and help us do the drywall? I get there and they say, hey, we already got the drywall up for you. You just have to tape it. And you go and look at it and you go, oh wow. The way it was, put up, and you're trying to be an encouragement to them, but at the same time, you know that some of the things that they've done are wrong. So this was a little bit of the dilemma that Paul faced as well too. He had wrote a kind of a scorching letter to Corinthians after his visit to get this problem straightened out. And this is a letter, is not the letter that was written in 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians. This is a very personal letter, and it has not been found, but the evidence is that he did write a letter. But at the same time, he was talking about once he going back to who Jesus Christ, and that was his foundation of how he did it. It says, I call God as my witness, and it was in order to spare you that I did not return to Corinth. Not that we lord over your faith, but we work with you in your joy, because it was your faith that you stand firm. In other words, he was letting, Paul was, although he was wanting to come, but with the things going on, he decided it better not to come. And that's, sometimes we as Christians, we want to fix this, we want to fix that, and things like that. But sometimes you got to let it go, and let God work things out. I'm sure that all of us, in some form or another, have ran into maybe different personalities, whether it might be a family member or a friend or whatever, and you know that they're going the wrong way, but you've tried to share with them over and over. You want to fix your thing. But at some point, you have to say, okay, you have been told what the right way to go. You have to, sometimes you just have to let it go. And this is what Paul's little bit of dilemma was on that. As much as he wanted to be with them and go to them, he understood, and he had that discernment when to let go. Like when I'm going to do this, some of these churches or whatever, and they put the drywall up, on the broken corners and this and that, and I have to make a decision. I have to get a feeling of what those people in the church are like. Are they wanting to make an improvement, or do they want it just like that, or whatever? And so I try to be as discreet as possible, talk to certain individuals and say, well, now if we can take this down and kind of redo it a little better because this and this. And for the most part, they've allowed me to do what I need to do to fix it the right way. But at the same time, I have to have that discernment, because you can go into a situation and you can say it's got to be this way, it can't be any other way or whatever, and then you're running into personality conflicts and you're doing more destructiveness than you are actually help. And that's where Paul is in this area. And it said, and so because going on, starting in chapter 2, it says, but we work for your joy because of your faith, you are standing firm. So he's commenting to the Corinthian church to get these issues settled within himself. So I made my mind up that I would not make another painful visit to you. Now I can see the pulpit committee writing out certain letters to different pastors and stuff, and they get a letter back from one pastor and says, well, if I have to, I'll make another painful visit to Rainier. I'm sure that there would be some raised eyebrows of that, you know. How many of you had to make painful visits? I know I had to make some painful visits to the principal office when I was in grade school. But what he's referring to is he had to address the situation at least this one time. And when he made the visit and then wrote the second letter, he had to he had friends in the Corinthian church, but at the same time, he had these other false teachers and stuff that were heavily criticizing Paul when he was not there. And Paul had to address that issue. And so for him, it was a very, very painful visit and everything. So he did not want to make two painful visits. He's already made one. He says, for if I grieve you, who is left to make me glad, but you and I have grieved, I wrote as I did so that when I came, I should not be distressed by those who ought to make me rejoice. And he's talking to the leaders. He says, I want to rejoice with you and everything. He says, I have confidence in all of you that you would all share my joy. For I wrote you out of great distress and anguish of the heart and with many tears. Yeah, Paul he's being real. He's talking about the anguish, but he says not to grieve you, but to let you know the depth of my love for you. Sometimes the truth does hurt, and it's how we do it. If we can do it in a loving manner and make the people understand that he's not trying to condemn everybody, but they need to grow. He wants the church to continue to grow in the grace of Christ, and be mature in their spiritual growth and everything. And sometimes it does hurt, and sometimes there are situations we have to face, and then there are other times we have faced those situations. Yes, it might be a painful visit, but you have, in all good conscience, tried to encourage the brother, the sister, whoever it may be, during this time, and cause it. But then ultimately, he has left it alone to God. And once again, he's reaffirming that once you commit you commit yourself to God and everything. We need more yeses, like Paul says in the Scripture. How many of you are willing to say yes to Christ and let Him truly be the Lord? And that's what he's getting back. That we need to have that yes, that commitment and everything. And then God, in His own way, His own miraculous way, whether it's changing our schedule or where we may go, God is working still in working His will in His life in everything that you may say or do. And so this is a personal letter, as I'm talking about. Paul is opening himself up to this, but he has such a love for the church in Corinth that he's trying to do everything that he can to make a positive thing, even though it might be a bit of sorrow or anything. But as we sang the song, "Blessed be the name of the Lord," when things are going good or things are going bad, we still can stand firm on our faith and give and let the Lord be blessed in what He says and does for us in our lives. Amen. Wish it to you.